Oh my. All right, check this out. So we got through the mind section of This Explains Everything. I have videos on Ramachandran, Sperber. It's that 10-hour video. I talk about Sperber. I think I covered all the mind chapters that I wanted to cover from This Explains Everything. We're in the physics section now. And Tanya Lombrozo, the assistant professor of psychology, writes this entry, which is called Realism and Other Metaphysical Half-Truths. Okay, so in her essay, it's 2.5 pages. In her essay, she presents 3 examples. I'll read the first paragraph to you. The deepest, most elegant, and most beautiful explanations are the ones we find so overwhelmingly compelling that we don't even realize they're there. It can take years of philosophical training to recognize their presence and evaluate their merits. Consider the following 3 examples. I'm going to read you 2 of the examples. She focuses on one, I'm going to focus on the other. Realism. We explain the success of our scientific theories by an appeal to what philosophers call realism, the idea that they are more or less true. In other words, chemistry works because atoms actually exist, and hand washing prevents disease because there really are loitering pathogens. All right, so then she goes on and says, each of these explanations, I've only read you one of them, has been seriously attacked. Take realism, for example. And then she basically talks about how, all of our theories in the past have been wrong, and so if we have any humility at all, we're going to assume that, the stuff that we're thinking now is going to be wrong. But if they aren't true, why are they so effective? Intuitive realism is at best a metaphysical half-truth, albeit a fairly harmless one. I guess that's the answer to that. Okay, now here's the other one that she pointed out that I really like. So realism was the first, here's the second. Other minds. We explain why people act the way they do by positing that they have minds more or less like our own. We assume they have feelings, beliefs, and desires, and that they are not, for instance, zombie automata that convincingly act as if they have minds. This requires an intuitive leap. I think I'd actually ignored that sentence. This requires an intuitive leap. What is that? What do you mean? What requires an intuitive leap? Sometimes her pronouns aren't clear. This requires an intuitive leap. What requires an intuitive leap? But explaining that they have minds like our own? Positing that they have minds like our own? No, it doesn't. We assume that they have feelings, beliefs, and desires. This requires an intuitive leap. Leap? Okay, I don't know what she's talking about. But, so, if you watch this channel, humans are zombie automata. I am an NPC, so are you. And we just convincingly act as if we have minds. It falls apart pretty quickly if you even just scratch at the surface. For instance, ask someone to define a word that they use. You're having a debate, an argument. No, you're not. But you think that you are. Ask somebody to define one of the words that you keep using. All of a sudden, you'll start to see glitches. Ask someone, try to respond to one thing that they say, focusing on one thing. You try to focus yourself on one thing that they say, respond to it, and see whether they're able to respond to what you said in the context of what they had said, or whether it's just going to be like as though it's a randomly generated response. You just got to scratch at the surface. So we are zombie automata. Okay. And then she says, these explanations, those 3, realism, other minds, and causation is the one that I didn't read. These explanations are at the core of humans' understanding of the world, of our intuitive metaphysics. They also illustrate the hallmarks of a satisfying explanation. They unify many disparate phenomena by appealing to a small number of core principles. In other words, they are broad but simple. Realism can explain the success of chemistry, but also of physics, zoology, and deep-sea ecology. A belief in other minds can help someone understand politics, their family, and Middlemarch. What the fuck are you talking about? Who understands politics? Oh, you haven't scratched the surface. Ask someone to explain something that they understand in politics, and then ask them a follow-up question. Ask them to go one step farther, and you'll see glitches. And also you'll see the sort of surprise. They'll be surprised by their own glitches if they notice it. First they'll say gibberish. But if they have the humility to realize that some of the stuff that's coming out immediately is gibberish, they're gonna go, that's a good question. And your question was the most basic question. Who the fuck understands their family? What are you talking about? If people understood their family, we wouldn't be so upset with our families all the time. We understood each other. What are you talking about? You have no understanding of your family. It's called the illusion of understanding. There are experiments that are done with simple things like a bicycle or a toilet. Ask somebody, hey, do you know how a toilet works? They'll be like, yeah. You'll be like, okay, how does it work? They'll be like, and then probably what they'll say is, what they could say is they could do what's called confabulating, which is to sort of make something up to make it work. But I don't mean make up how the toilet works. What they'll do is all of a sudden they believe that they had understood the question differently. That when they had said yes, because this is what they might say. Oh, I thought you meant no. So here's what they'll say. Yeah, I know how a toilet works. Okay, how does it work? Well, I press the button and then the water comes down, flushes, and it goes away. And as they're realizing that might not be a satisfactory explanation, all of a sudden a voice out of nowhere, not out of nowhere, but that wasn't there before, is going to go, oh, we understood the question, like, how do you understand how to use a toilet? No, you didn't. No, you didn't. If someone asked me, do you know how a toilet works? Well, I know about the experiment, but before I knew about the experiment, if someone asked me, do you know how a toilet works? I would have very damn well understood what the question was, asking how does a toilet function? I would have said yes. Then they would have said, oh yeah, how does it function? I would have been like, oh shit. And then I probably would have said, oh, I thought you meant like, how do I like use it? And I probably would have said, no, I guess I don't know, which would reveal that I am still kind of in the process of accepting that I don't know how a toilet works. The other experiment that they do is with, well, they probably do lots of experiments like these, but the two famous ones. The other one is with a bike. So you know how a bike works? People go, yeah. Okay, draw a bike, with just the important parts. And the pedals, there's no chain connecting the pedals to the back wheel, which is the only part of a bike that matters besides, you have the pedals, the wheels, and then you need the chain to connect them. It matters far more than the seat or the handlebars. So, and I just thought that was so funny. A belief in other minds can help someone understand politics, their family. She must have been trying to make a point, but it's just that she didn't follow up with this. She didn't say, wait a minute, no one actually understands politics. No one actually understands their family. And what the hell is Middlemarch? And it's the title is a fictional set in Middlemarch. I mean, the first question on Google here is Middlemarch easy to read? Middlemarch is an entire world. Reading, you'll get familiar with people. You'll feel you know everyone. Their secrets will make an impression on you. Their sorrows will be your sorrows. Okay, so that sometimes you'll read something like a sentence or a paragraph, and you realize, oh shoot, I didn't really understand that. You know what? I'm not talking about when you weren't paying attention. Let's say you were paying attention and you realize, I didn't understand that, and then you read it again, still didn't understand, and you read it again, and then this time you continue. Why have you continued? Is it because you understood it? Actually, you can't really know that, because the comprehension voice took a back seat to the familiarity voice. So you started judging your relationship to the thing that you were reading, not actually based on comprehension, but based on familiarity. And so what ends up happening, well, actually, that's how we judge almost all of our comprehension, how familiar we are with something. So we're very familiar with bikes, very familiar with toilets, right? And so what happens is you read a paragraph, you didn't understand it, probably because there were some unfamiliar words and some relationships that didn't slap anything in you because they were unfamiliar. So you read it again. What's going to happen? The words, the word order are going to become familiar. Comprehension isn't going to change at all, but the text is going to become more familiar, and now you'll feel like you understand it. And it's an incredibly common thing whenever I'm talking about this stuff. Often when I'm talking about this stuff, except for my jumping around a lot, the things that I say don't really trigger any alarms, don't feel unfamiliar. And yet, people who have listened to me for months, I'll ask them what I consider a basic question about what I've been saying. And as familiar as they felt with everything I said, there never actually was as much comprehension. All right, so there's the tip of the day. Remember that your familiarity voice is judging more loudly than if you even have a comprehension voice. Just a little shortcut for the brain, because it's difficult to figure out, do we understand something? First, got to understand something to then compare your understanding to it. I mean, it would be pretty difficult. I mean, I'm sure there are other ways, but anyway, it's difficult to properly assess whether you understand something. But a really easy way is, does that feel familiar or not? And that's so perfect. Middlemarch, it's called the familiarity bias or something. I don't know. Middlemarch's entire world. Reading it, you'll get familiar with people. And that I agree with. I do not agree with Lombrozo. Where is this Bombozo? I do not agree with keeping in mind that there may be a gender bias, that if she were, I don't think I would have commented on, we wouldn't have noticed the pronouns if she were a man. I wouldn't notice that the pronouns were problematic for me. And I certainly maybe, anyway. So she says, a belief in other minds can help us somewhat understand Middlemarch. This 5 tips for reading and loving Middlemarch on readfindbooks.com said you'll get familiar with people, and that's much more accurate. So how can you actually, what could we replace this or add to this other minds thing so we actually could understand people? Voice theory, evolution. Voice theory includes evolution. So evolution, and then the fact that we are zombie automata. Once you understand that we are zombie automata, that we aren't really these singular unified minds at all, that we're just running on programs that we've been programmed to run on. Okay, now you can understand politics, you can understand your family, and you can understand the NPCs of Middlemarch. so long as you think you're evaluating characters, things will remain a mystery to you, even if they feel familiar.